On this episode...
Well, that's a raised beach, and Jura's famous for them.
Anything on board we can buy off you in the way of food?
It's quite long them.
Yeah, exactly. Are you sure?
And it is an early Christian community of the 5th to 8th centuries AD. My name is Jeremy Norman. I'm the principal owner of Soho Gyms. And before that, I started the world-famous Heaven nightclub.
I'm Derek Frost, and professionally I used to be an interior designer.
I met Derek when he was 25 and I was 29, and we've been together ever since. I heard on the radio someone saying that spring travels up through Britain at the pace of a walking man. And I thought that was an intensely romantic notion.
Every summer, Derek and Jeremy charter Killarney, an 80-foot twin-screw diesel motor yacht. Usually, they cruise the Mediterranean. This journey will be different. They'll start at the very tip of England, which is the Scilly Isles, and from there, they'll go up the Bristol Channel to South Wales. And from South Wales, right around the coast of Wales, across the Irish Sea to Northern Ireland. Then, up the coast of Northern Ireland, right to the very top, to Reitlin Island, and then across to the Mull of Kintyre. They'll then proceed up the Inner Hebrides to Ullapool, taking in all the famous islands, and then from Ullapool to the Outer Hebrides, and from there on to St Kilda, hopefully, if they make it. Previously,
the whirlpool is so powerful that it sets up a kind of a low rumble.
What a pretty boat.
We'll get there.
Derek and Jeremy met an interesting young artist.
You used the word politics when you described this. You said...
Well, yeah, I mean, this picture was about, it's like 92, and there was a lot of blackfish being landed in the North Sea.
Right.
Blackfish means fish landed at night illegally.
Can you hear that noise?
Yeah, that's a standing wave that forms.
And they braved the famous whirlpools of Jura. After sailing from Crinan the previous evening, they spend the night anchored in the upper reaches of Loch Sween and awake to another splendid spring morning.
Today is Wednesday the 21st of May, and we're currently anchored, and we were last night, in Upper Loch Sween on the mainland. And we're proposing to leave at about 10 o'clock this morning and take advantage of the period of slack tide to come down Loch Sween and across to the Sound of Islay there, by which time the tide will be flooding and will take us molto rapido through the Sound of Islay, and hopefully we will also get some telephone signal there, into Loch Tarbert on Jura, which is a very remote, in fact one of the most remote sea lochs in the Inner Hebrides. There are no roads to it, it's totally inaccessible, and very few people go there. So that'll be a really wonderful thing to do. We've got a couple of days. I think we should do tonight there,
Yeah.
next night there.
Yeah. Okay, because we have got a few days, haven't we, before we...
Yeah. And then up here, how far is that?
Well, that's
quite a run, isn't
it's
it?
not really that far, Joe. That's 5 miles.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 miles up to that top.
Perfect.
With their course set, they head off in choppy seas. Their destination, Loch Tarbert. With the Paps of Jura as a backdrop, they enter the loch and can now see the Tarbert estate, owned by Lord and Lady Astor, William and Annabel, who are friends of Derek and Jeremy. A little further on, they spot Glenbactrick Lodge on the shoreline. On arrival at Glenbactrick, they are amazed by the pristine white sand beaches and the sky blue seas. But for the chill in the air, they could be in the Bahamas. Tarbert is primarily a private shooting lodge and hunting estate enjoyed by the family, but is occasionally rented to shooting parties. As Lord and Lady Astor couldn't be here themselves, they have given Derek and Jeremy an introduction to their understalker, who tells them about the natural history of this spectacular place.
And actually in the field up at Tarbert there's a big sandstone. There's quite a few of them dotted up and down the island, just here, there and everywhere.
And you mentioned eagles here. How easy is it for us to see an eagle? And are they
Along with a bit of strength.
golden eagles or sea eagles?
There's both.
There's both. And ospreys, do you get ospreys?
No.
Here? No. So it's sea eagles and golden eagles.
Yeah.
And are they? And is the sea eagle white underneath?
Just depends on its age. The mature ones have a white tail.
Yeah.
The immatures don't. You get mixed up between them and the golden eagles quite easy.
Okay.
But size would tell you the difference. The sea eagle's much bigger.
There shouldn't presumably be juveniles around yet.
No, but last year's will be. It takes them 4 years.
Yeah.
It takes them 4 years to go to maturity.
Okay.
So you could get mixed up quite easily. I mean, I get mixed up quite often.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I'll admit it straight away.
As one of the gillies, Roddy relies on a well-trained dog to retrieve the game during the pheasant shooting season.
Stay there. Stay there. Stay.
Derek is very impressed.
So obedient. Come here. Come here. Such a good dog. Dead. Dead. Good dog. You go up the path and you go along, and there's the raised beaches on the top there.
Okay.
They're actually not the biggest ones, but they're the easiest ones to get to from here. Boulders from this size
Shells?
to this size. No,
No shells.
it's just boulders.
Just boulders.
You'll see it when you go up. It's
And
amazing.
is that because it's all drenched in salt, or what's the...
No, it's just, I don't know.
Very interesting.
But there's a huge beach. I was telling the boys. There's a huge beach further in the loch.
Yeah.
It's 500-600 yards wide. It goes up to about 200 feet high,
Yeah.
and you can walk up it. But one side of the beach, the pebbles are small,
Yeah.
and the other side of the beach, pebbles are
They're
like
all
this size.
graded all the way.
It's graded.
That you see in current beaches today.
Aye.
Yep. Chesil Beach is a prime example. At one end you've got boulders, the other end you've got fine sand, and you've got everything in between. And it's just the action of the tide. The lightest pieces get carried further, and then as the strength of the tide's not enough to hold them, they drop, and that's how that effect is created. Well, that's a raised beach, and Jura's famous for them. And they came about during the latter part of the Ice Age, when the ice was melting and retreating, and the land bounced back, having had this huge weight of ice on it. And at various points it stopped long enough for a beach to form. And these raised beaches are extraordinary because, as you see, they have no vegetation. It's quite a sight, that, to see that 50 or 60 feet up from the present sea level.
Hey, look, guys. Look. Seagull's nest. What are those gulls, no?
There you go.
Herring gulls. I mean, that's a lot. You know the eggs we used to get at Needsall?
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger, these.
It's a herring gull. Yeah. The nests are dotted all over these raised beaches in the shingle. And it's a typical nest of straw and bits of dried seaweed and a clutch of 3 eggs, which are still warm.
I'm not sure how you want to do this, whether in the meantime I'll move the boat or I wait for you, Rob, so I can tow the rib so we can save on petrol for the rib.
I think let's wait.
Wait for Rob.
Yeah, I think.
Because we're not in a hurry to get over.
If I then come back, then I'm going to be travelling halfway across, and then am I going to have to leave and then go and pick the guys up? So what do we?
Might as well just stay.
So we just stay here till we get everybody back on board.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everyone back on.
Perfect. This is my kind of landing.
In the end, they decide to take the rib to the further reaches of the loch to see the raised beaches that Roddy had told them about. Captain Tim joins them for the outing.
Oh, there we go. That's a bit stressful. Oh, that was all right.
Yes.
How do you enjoy being off Killarney?
I like being off Killarney, but I like being off Killarney in a relaxed situation like now, so I can actually relax and enjoy. You know, because I know it's safe. Demi's on board. I wouldn't have wanted Demi to go shopping with them.
Right.
You know, because at least he's on board and he's aware of the systems and what have you.
Sure.
But look how lovely those are.
No, they're perfect. They're just my kinds of
Lots of lovely variety of colours. Sort of slate grey, green almost, through to the purple.
They head upwards, and Jeremy sets himself a task.
That's what we do.
Okay, that one.
What are you looking for, Jeremy?
Yeah.
I tell you exactly what I'm looking for. A stone that looks as near to to a gull's egg as possible.
A gull's egg.
As they move along the beach, they observe the curious effect that Roddy mentioned. The shingle is graded from pebbles at one end to rocks at the other.
That is such a bizarre photograph. The most ultimately kind of minimal garden. Talked about that guy Derek Jarman the other day, and he's got this famous garden, you know, they had on a beach in Dungeness. I mean, he would have gone crazy for this.
The strange island hummocks hold some rare and beautiful finds.
Well, these are spring wild orchids, and I think these are pyramidal orchids, but there are a lot of spring orchids, and I'm not an expert botanist, so I can't be sure. And I think also, that these little bright green shoots here are bilberry, which is an acid-loving bog plant, and this is, of course, a mound based on peat, on sphagnum. This moss is sphagnum moss, which is the basis of a peat bog. And you've got heather here, of course, as well.
The most perfect little kind of garden. I took a picture of one of these yesterday. And take this one too, because the sun's out this second. Do you know what kind of orchid it is? It's a meadow orchid.
Half a dozen types of pink spring orchid.
That one there and that little, what's that little yellow thing? Do you know what it is? It's a type of euphorbia. I hope it's coming off that, Norm.
That's the heather. That's the heather.
Oh, so it's off this thing, yeah. The view from the top of the cliff is breathtaking. Captain Tim can also see that his beloved Killarney is safe. After spending the night off the Isle of Colonsay, they head for the port of Oban in Argyllshire. On the way, they observe Manx shearwaters as they skim the surface of the sea with precision and agility. They are happy to see a working trawler. These days, so many are mothballed in ports.
You don't by any chance have anything on board we can buy off you in the way of food?
You spot lobsters.
Lobsters?
Spot lobsters.
They're good to eat?
Oh, they're better than prawns.
How are they?
If you've eaten them, you'll never eat anything with prawns. Name it spot lobsters.
Can I have a lobster?
There's a handful here, that's all. That's all it is. You can try them, it's easy.
What do you think? How do you eat these?
You just peel, trim it. You just take the tails off.
Yeah?
You boil it up, that's it. You boil it, it's like a prawn tail.
Yeah. This tastes different.
It's sweeter. I never eat prawns, I only eat these.
Okay, well can we take a few off you?
Take the whole lot.
How much are they?
No, you can have that.
You're kidding?
No, just take that, yeah.
Okay, we just put them in something, yeah?
You've got something at bag. Do after Lancaster.
Lancaster,
Yeah, this is the bycatch.
Yeah. Our boat's gone off to Oban. And then we're going to join her there.
What boat's that? You're just having a jolly off the Winkle, are you?
Yeah, exactly. Are you sure? Well, that's jolly decent of you, huh?
Not much. There's going to be very little there when you do tail them. If you'd been yesterday, we could have given you baskets at the moment.
What do you call them?
Squat lobsters.
Squat lobsters.
Squat lobsters, yeah.
Well, that's jolly
I
decent.
can't understand why. Well, there was somebody trying to get them on the market, but there's never been a big push to get them marketed there. They're far, far better than prawns. Far, far sweeter, yeah.
Good luck to the marriage with
Oh, well, we need plenty of it, I'll tell you. Every fishing boat does.
Thanks a hell of a lot.
No problem at all. Nice to play them.
Yeah, okay.
Thank God.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, now, cheers. There it was.
Yelak Nani, which means place of the saints. And it's a holy island full of spiritual mystery, we hope, and some monastic remains. So we'll go and see.
As they head off towards the ancient monastery, Jeremy is distracted by one of his favourite wild flowers.
Well, you can see why that's called eggs and bacon. Its real name is bird's foot trefoil, because when it comes out in bud, it's red, and when the flower opens, it's yellow. It's a member of the pea family. A collection of primroses, here and here, still in flower, and there couldn't be anything more spring-like than that. The whole island is uninhabited, and it's really a nature reserve and an ancient monument. We're on a small island, about 35 miles from Oban, and it is an early Christian community. of the 5th to 8th centuries AD. It was probably the work of Brendan of Clonfert. St Brendan was a follower of St Columba, who founded Iona, so this may well be a subsidiary community from the Ionian community. But the basic enclosure is one of the most complete early Christian compounds, and you get a sense here of the isolation in which these monks lived and worked. There are also cells planted around the island of beehive construction, where presumably monks went to go into retreat and to be further away even from the small community that lived here.
Were they built of stone?
They were built of stone, and I think most of them look as though they were corbelled, which is the most basic primitive technique of oversailing courses to make a beehive. But the life here must have been incredibly tough. Can you imagine living on this completely desolate place with only a few sheep, maybe a pig or two? I mean, where they grew vegetables, I can't even imagine. But it was through the people who lived in places like this that Christianity survived in the West.
What are the Dark Ages? What
The Dark Ages came after the Romans finally left in 4 to 500 AD. History has a big blank, apart from the works of the Venerable Bede and one or two other monks of this sort, who kept knowledge and culture alive in these very, very remote places. They also had to guard themselves against attack from marauding Norsemen and other Scottish tribes who were all pagan.
I think they're very impressive.
It's astonishing to think that the monastery was built nearly 1,500 years ago. Later, back on board,
Tell me a little bit about some of the, I suppose, the people you met along the way.
The first person we talked to actually was a taxi driver in Cornwall, who said that he'd been a fisherman all his life and he had to give up fishing, and that in his day, not that many years ago, we're talking about in the 80s and 90s, there was a big mackerel fishing industry in Cornwall of winter mackerel, which were the larger mackerel that stayed behind in the winter, and they were basically fished by the local fishermen and sold to Russian factory ships, which stood offshore to receive the bounty. And as a result, the winter mackerel have disappeared entirely from Cornwall. Capitalism has an inherent flaw, and that is that it relies on ever-increasing growth, ever-continuing growth. Well, mankind cannot continue to demand more and more of the earth in terms of the things it consumes, particularly the non-renewable resources. And it has effectively not fished, but mined fish, and exhausted the breed stock in so many places. Another classic example, the Grand Banks of Canada, where the cod was so thick that you could put a basket down, a weighted basket, and pull it up and you just about get a cod in it, or even more than one cod. And now that fishery was stopped some 20 years ago. The cod have still not recovered. We've got to find a method within capitalism to allow for stasis, not continual growth.
You know, the wonderful thing about nature is there is no kind of start-finish. It's this amazing thing that goes on and on. And, you know, I think it's a bit kind of over the top in a way, but I think when we were in the woods the other day on the Isle of Man, and we were getting, you know, we as people are born and are young and age, and then we die. It's a process. The amazing thing about the seasons is that the seasons don't die, they repeat. And so even as we age, they repeat. And there's something very wonderful and moving about that, you know. You know, spring every year is a new thing, and it's fantastic.
next time on Chasing Spring.
When just off the island of Lismore in Loch Linney, and that little island would just do me fine. And this is where Derek and I came some 15 years ago on an intensely romantic weekend in September.
We were just on the bike and we saw this little sign, castle. And then this place was here, and we climbed up here.